It's a combination of apathy, yeah, sure. It's a combination also of great subconscious trepidation, which again is manufactured by the external world to make people think in terms of lack. All that fear that comes across the television, all that fear about economy and shaky economy and potential disasters, you see, this scares people into thinking, where will I get another job? Oh my God, woe is me. I've got to be very, very careful. And I mean, this ties into the whole mystical psychology of how a person thinks regarding their entire prosperity. And I don't just mean in a more limited way of, earnings and whatnot, but I mean in totality, because it all hangs together. People have been traumatized in the truly deep meaning of that word. We just don't think so, because normally you see a traumatized person somewhere on a gurney being wheeled into a casualty ward, or some person from a wreck or whatever. That's what we imagine is a trauma situation, and we don't even see it walking around the streets unless you're highly sensitive, and you can bloody well feel it, and then that's a whole different subject matter. But I can assure you that most people walking around in the world today are deeply traumatized. They can barely hold the jobs that you're describing, the ones that they've got.
Right.
Because on those 2 to 3 days off, it's a case of medication and alcoholism and so many other little, avoidances and calamities that are going on in their private lives. Never forget that, you've got the person who's working, and that same worker, and I've had this from the horse's mouth in exactly the same way you just described there about people.
Yeah.
I've had it from the horse's mouth also. That people sometimes don't even want to go home. They don't want to be alone. They want to head down to the pub and the bar and even hang with a lot of people they don't really like, just to avoid being alone of an evening, you know what I mean? Or even have the lights off. We're living in a super extroverted, outer-directed world in which people actually very much want to go to work because it's better than, the other. So it's the situation in which, Patrick McGowan, for instance, showed in The Prisoner, in which everyone wants that number. They're absolutely happy to be a pawn because there's even a certain amount of sadism. I believe there's sadism as a core aspect of the human psyche. And there's just enough sadism to have people in a managerial or sub-managerial position where they can nag and bicker and have a little bit of power over some other guy that they can kick out the door, some Mexican they can push around, at work and, give orders to, or some little naive, timid person they can sort of, flirt with and destroy their lives. There's enough. See, we got to look at the fact that the big boys at the top are sadistic and tyrannical and whatnot. But I have with my own eyes seen equal, if not more tyranny, more passive aggression, in Stanford Mall where I used to work in America, and in other places when I worked retail, and walked around the streets and did common labor. Yeah. I don't know if it was just me, my own eyes that have been trained to see this, but I saw it everywhere. And I don't mean in the fat cop who comes along to give you a ticket for no personal reason, the particular, scenarios or situations. In which most, exactly, not the most obvious. I'm talking about in the least obvious, in the way that people even treated their animals, in the way people treated their front garden. We're back to, environmentalism again, or we're back to conservationism again. And what is conservation? Conservation, using one plastic cup and then chucking it away, getting 2 straws and then throwing it away when you barely take a sip out of a cup. Take a walk down any American boulevard and you'll see the opposite. You'll see, I don't give a damn what the Gores of the world are screaming, or the bigger question.
Yeah.
Let's look at the lack of conservation, and the lack of environmentalism in the most small things. Look at the way people treat their bodies, all the way up to the psychic sadism that people perpetrate on themselves, and then all the way down to the bottom of just even what they eat. So again, it comes back to the old thing that if you want to go and buy all that GMO and all of that stuff, and if you want to get your petrol from BP and from Esso or Exxon or whatever, and you want to buy the Monsanto, Frankenfoods, you are the tyrant. Stop blaming the people upstairs. They create some garbage, you're eating it, you're paying for it. Yeah. So, you see, this is the thread that I see, which is the continuation of, yes, there is definitely 100% the sorcery going on from on high. And the big problem, everybody's scratching heads going, what are we going to do about that? Well, what you do about it is the secret is just like almost a chakra thing. It's almost like a Kabbalistic thing. The head is reflected in the bottom. The 1 is reflected in the 10. The upper is reflected in the lower. Even Joseph Campbell pointed this out when he did his schemata of the chakras, in which the highest chakra something about the highest chakra is in fact emulated and present, perhaps in a different form, of course, in the lowest chakra. The yin-yang, in the black is the white, in the white is the black. So you see, the tyrant's face is in some sense a reflection of everyone's individual face. And that's why my message is not so much political, it's always going to be psychological, and it always will be. Because even though I see all of these political and then social and environmental, sociological phenomena, I understand that it's like, you know, radiating from a central battery, a central core, a central crystal. And what goes into that crystal is the psyche of man. It's man's thinking. But it's just because our children have never been trained this way. We ourselves have never been trained this way. The last book that anyone will ever pick up is a book on psychology. We know that. So therefore, we are running ignorant. And we are able to then be led by these sheepdog, some with a smile and some with a bark, in whatever direction, you know, they want to take us.